Okay, so as you know, recently there's been a lot of kind of sentiments going towards people like Ironmouse and other VTubers, all based off of this recent Streamer Awards drama. Now, obviously, it's been a couple of weeks since the original Streamer Awards drama actually first kicked off, but I think it's now turned into this whole kind of, I guess, perpetual domino effect of people going after VTubers, going after Ironmouse, and going after all sorts of people, due to the fact of them being VTubers and pretty much understanding nothing about the space, right? And I think it is pretty insane how it's gotten to this point. Now, there is one particular clip which blew up just last night, I'm pretty sure, and it's from a streamer called Soilluminati. I've never heard of them before, but again, obviously, they are quite big. A lot of people, like their content or whatever. And yeah, this was the clip. It's got 3.9 million views. It says, Illuminati says he feels like really bad for Ironmouse and VTubers because they hide behind a cartoon instead of being able to freely show themselves and say what they want. If your avatar Ironmouse disappeared today, who would still love you for who you really are? That's a quote from his clip there. This is some of the clip. We won't play it all, but we'll just play some of it so you guys can understand his kind of, talk behind this.
When is the last time you felt seen without the character being present? And I'm talking to the real her and the whole entire VTuber community who's going through this shit. I know what y'all going through. Behind the scenes, I know what y'all going through. The thoughts is not yours. Y'all just be chilling, rehearsing, and then y'all gotta snap out of it. It's like the character keep putting thoughts in y'all mind. Y'all be talking to yourself using the avatar voice. You gotta snap out of it. Oh shit. Number 2, Ironmouse, has the avatar ever said something you wish you could say? Y'all just witnessed in the video, the avatar said, y'all can ask me anything. But she was physically shaking behind the scenes. She was scared as fuck. She was vulnerable. But the avatar took control so she could hide behind that.
So yeah, essentially that was a clip, right? And it keeps going on like this. He's essentially going through questions that he would ask Ironmouse if he could, right? And he's essentially saying, or kind of implying, that this VTuber model is like the Green Goblin's mask. Like, it takes over her personality, and when she goes behind the VTuber model, she completely changes. Which obviously, sometimes is the case for some VTubers, right? Some VTubers play a character, some VTubers like to play it up a little bit, and again, that's totally fine. If some people want to get behind that, or some people prefer that, then that's totally fine, right? But also there are many VTubers who also just use their actual personality, right? They literally just use their model as just something to kind of, show themselves, but they're literally just themselves behind that model, right? So again, I don't know if he has a wild misunderstanding behind what a VTuber is. Well, I think it is very clear that he has a very wild misunderstanding of what a VTuber actually is. And obviously he asks questions, for example, like, do you wish you could say anything that your VTuber avatar could say? Like they're two separate people or something like that. I don't understand what he's really getting at there, but again, obviously, I think he believes that they are two separate people or something, or two separate personalities, where she's like answering fake questions or answering fake stuff. No, all of this stuff is obviously, in the case of Ironmouse in particular, I'm pretty sure most of the stuff is obviously her. It's her personal life. Obviously, she believes in everything she says. She's not gonna go ahead and just lie because of something. Like, sure, she might cover up some things that are personal and whatever. That's totally fine. I think most content creators do that. But I think with Ironmouse, I don't think that she has this like entire fake persona, which some people are acting like there is. And as I said, there are many VTubers out there who do, but I don't think Ironmouse is one of them. And the same goes for a lot of other VTubers as well, who are obviously very, very open about, how much, they get on with it, like real life and things like that. Like, again, it totally depends on the VTuber. It totally depends what's going on. But again, I do find it kind of weird how he's trying to like equate it to like, yeah, some kind of like Green Goblin mask type thing where they completely change persona and that they're actually really, really miserable behind the camera, when in actual fact, that's not the case, right? I think that a lot of people have a weird misconception that all VTubers are miserable, or that they, are using a VTuber model because they have a problem. A lot of the time, people that use VTuber models are totally fine, right? And I think a lot of the people that are kind of getting jumping on this bandwagon of hate for VTubers understand nothing about the kind of culture and the community behind it all and what a VTuber actually is. And that's why we're seeing such an influx of stupid clips like this. There's another clip as well, which I'll probably make a whole separate video on, about Black Boy Max, obviously, as well, saying, oh, why doesn't Ironmouse just come to this party? No iPad. And obviously a lot of people have been pretty angry at them for that, because obviously we all know that she has a condition. He did correct himself on the clip itself, so again, obviously it wasn't as bad, but I do think, you know, it's just a little bit, I guess, insensitive and things like that, right? And then obviously we got some people as well, you know, responding to this, including Rima, saying, wow, bro really thought he was dishing out some deep thoughts and knowledge here. I'm almost embarrassed for him. Who would love you if your avatar disappeared? Listen, buddy, the reason we love VTubers is because of their personality, not the avatar. And yeah, this was a very, very important point that was brought up here, which was later on in the clip, saying, if your avatar Ironmouse disappeared today, who would still love you for who you really are? And he tried to like play it off as this kind of big philosophical point, right? But I don't think this guy knows much about VTuber culture, and obviously I think it's pretty evident that he doesn't, because I think that, you know, we've seen so many different VTubers, you know, graduate and then obviously start up again as some kind of indie VTuber or whatever, and people find a way to find them, right? People don't just leave because their avatar is gone, or because, you know, they no longer have that kind of model anymore. They go and find them. They like them for their personality. And obviously that is the reason why many VTubers change their model. You know, for example, you know, you have like re-debuts. Ironmouse even does this. She changes her model like every couple of months or so, right? Obviously, yes, it sticks with a theme, but it changes, right? And people don't understand the fact that it's not really the model that people were interested in. Obviously, yes, you know, the VTuber aspect is, you know, there, but as long as they continue being a VTuber, or even outside of being a VTuber, you don't even have to be a VTuber. As long as you are there is someone there, and that their personality is still the same, people are going to watch and people are going to find them no matter what. That's why we have so many people, whenever big VTubers graduate and, you know, they go off to do some indie work, they find them. Reddit threads, things like that. They find their own account and they get millions of followers. Think about Saba, for example, right? Saba, obviously, you guys know, used to be Gorgura, one of the biggest VTubers in, obviously, Hololive. And again, she graduated and then debuted as Saba. And the only reason why it's so popular was because so many people enjoyed Gorgura for, you know, her personality. And obviously it doesn't matter if she's in the Saba model or in the Gorgura model. They like her personality because it's exactly the same, right? Obviously, yes, some people do put on characters and things, but even then they will still try to find them. And I think that this model doesn't hold any attachment to the audience, right? The audience aren't going to get up and leave if you suddenly change your model. And the same goes for like IRL as well. For example, like Bao, like Onigiri, like so many other people, right, who do IRL content mixed in with their VTuber content, right? You know, people still watch them. They still enjoy their content because they like their personality. Again, I think it is a stupid point to say that if your, you know, if your avatar disappeared today, would people still? Oh, so would who would love you for who you really are? Which again, I think is crazy, because it's almost on the level of me saying, "Hey, if I took your camera tomorrow, who would love you for who you really are?" You know, it's the same thing. The VTuber model is just a, I guess, what do you call it? A vehicle for obviously, you know, having some kind of extra added personality on that. And obviously saying that, you know, they're hiding themselves and that they can't freely show themselves is actually even less so. I think you can hide yourself easier on a camera than you can. Well, obviously, I mean, in terms of emotions, you can't. Emotions are a little bit easier to hide behind a VTuber model. But in terms of like actually expressing yourself and the things that you like, I think it's actually easier with a VTuber model because they incorporate that into the design of the VTuber. You know, for example, you know, certain styles and certain aesthetics and things like that that people like, they will incorporate into their VTuber model because that is part of their personality. It's not like the fact that they are hiding their personality. If anything, they're showing off their personality even more than someone who is sat in a pretty plain room and just kind of, you know, talking at a camera. Now, sure, obviously they can express emotions maybe a little bit easier and stuff like that, sure, but again, obviously there's been massive advancements in rigging and everything like that. And I do think that obviously it is getting to a point where VTubers actually become a little bit more telling of their own personality than actually someone sat in front of a camera, right? Obviously, Rima goes on to say, and the proof of it is that beloved VTubers have lost their avatars in the past, reincarnated and returned to legions of adoring friends. When I hear these deeply confident but totally ignorant takes, I just lose hope in humanity. Makes me wish Naruto was canon. Madara's infinite Tsukuyomi will actually happen, I swear to God. Which, yeah, it's quite funny. And then obviously got Espiritu here saying, I'm going to add to Rima's point, if any of us stopped making content tomorrow, we'd be mostly forgotten within days, weeks, or months, some faster than others. Obviously, yeah, it depends on how big you are. I think, obviously, if you have some kind of a following, some people would, like, you know, obviously be wondering where the content is at and things like that. Again, it all depends on your size, how many viewers you get, and whatever. But at the end of the day, we'd be replaced. People need to stop thinking we're gods. Ironmouse could start a whole new channel and model, and people would flock to her because they love her for who she really is, not her looks or model. At the end of the day, we're only human, and over time we'll be forgotten. So, not to sound too deep, live life the best you can, and don't let retards like this guy stop you from enjoying it. Which obviously, yeah, I think is 100% true. And obviously, you had Connor as well commenting on this, saying, I wish I had the confidence to make videos and not know the bare minimum. Which, again, he's been getting a lot of hate for this, which I can kind of understand, because obviously, you know, he's on a podcast where a lot of the time they discuss topics which they don't really know the bare minimum about, right? And like a lot of their, like some of the topics they talk, some obviously, you know, whenever they talk about anime and stuff, they're well informed, they know about this kind of stuff, but sometimes they do go on to like other topics as well outside of the anime space, which sometimes they don't know as much as maybe they should do whenever talking about it. So again, obviously a lot of people have been calling him out for essentially saying you do kind of the same thing, you kind of talk about some topics that you don't know about, which I do think is kind of true, but also at the same time I think Connor is right. Connor's right, but I also think he does the same, right? I think that is essentially the takeaway from it. Obviously, I think that obviously he is discussing VTubers, which he knows the bare minimum of, but I think Connor also discusses topics that he knows the bare minimum of over on his podcast and even on stream and stuff like that too, which again, obviously, I think some people do all the time. But again, obviously it is pretty annoying at the moment because there's been a huge influx of it, especially with a lot of the hatred that has been coming towards VTubers, right? So yeah, I mean, that is essentially everything to do with this clip and all of this kind of stuff. I thought it was a pretty interesting one, and it's blown up massively since the other day. So yeah, I just wanted to talk about it because I thought it was pretty insane about how some people view VTubers from outside of the community. Again, I like, if this guy did a little bit of research, maybe, you know, obviously understood how it works a little bit better, then sure, I can understand him actually adding, you know, a little bit of his point there. But, you know, it just feels like he doesn't really know much about anything that's going on. It feels very uninformed. And yeah, a lot of people have been calling him out for that. But yeah, if you guys did enjoy this video, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe. Also, go to GameSubs, use my code Kaza, get 10% off. Again, they got a ton of really cool stuff over there. I definitely recommend checking it out. And yeah, I'll see you guys in the next one. That's all. See ya.